everyone to today's webinar. We're continuing our Demolition Week, which is a series of activities around the demo. As much as we talked about in PreSales Collective, we want to elevate pre-sales beyond the demo, which we certainly want to. Demos are not going away. So this week is about everything, breaking down the demo, understanding more about demo activities. So today we're taking you in the room where it happens. This is actually going to be a live role play of a demo meeting. So you're going to see some things going back and forth. As I said, it's a very different format from our typical webinars. We very much hope you enjoy it. To start off, I do want to have each of the panelists introduce themselves as their true roles before we drop them into our role-playing scenario. So Tom, you maybe want to kick it off?
Sure, Tom Banton, week 2 at the PreSales Collective here. I'm running our Leader Elevate program. So if you're a new manager and would like some training on how to be a pre-sales manager, please reach out to me on any medium possible.
All right, Peter.
Hey, hey everyone, Peter Doro here. I am a solutions manager at Memora Health. So if you're in the health tech space or just want to geek out over pre-sales stuff, give me a shout.
All right, Pam, we'll toss it to you next.
Awesome. Hey everyone, I'm Pam Dunn. I'm a senior solution engineer at Contentful, and I have been in this illustrious pre-sales career now for going on 20 years, which is crazy to think about, but I would love to connect with people who want to talk all things pre-sales. Folks from the PreSales Academy, hit me up. I'm happy to talk to you about what makes this career so great.
Fantastic. And Veronica.
Thanks, Kevin. Hi, everyone. I'm Veronica, and I was a solution consultant for a few years. I recently moved to solution consulting enablement, and I love it. I work with Oracle NetSuite, and any ideas on how we can make solution consultants better and how we can make their life better and their job easier, I love to get to know them, and I love to share my knowledge and experience as well.
Yeah. Thank you all. Not to brag, but I think we've assembled a fantastic panel, especially for this type of exercise. So very excited to have all of you joining us in. Just as a quick agenda review, we'll go through our welcome here. Then, as I said, the bulk of our time today will be peeking into the room of a live meeting. You actually get to be an observer, that fly on the wall, not having to participate, not having to worry about what you're going to say. You just get to watch. We'll wrap that up with a quick debrief. Each of our panelists will offer a couple of additional suggestions about the role they played and how maybe you can deal with them. And we'll answer any questions that you might have as part of our wrap up there. First off, just want to say thank you all very much for being here. It's what makes the PreSales Collective possible. We're so excited to have every one of you attending our webinars, part of the PreSales Collective. If you're not a member yet, please come out and join. It doesn't cost you anything. And again, thank you to our panelists. They're all PreSales Collective members. We try to pull from our community to give all of you a voice and share the experience you have with all of the other people that are out there. And a few logistical things on how to get the most out of today's webinar. As always, you have the Q&A button down there at the bottom of your Zoom, the top, depending on how your screen's aligned. Feel free to drop any questions you would like to ask of the panelists. We'll pull those up as we can. And of course, be active in the chat. This is a great chance for you to share your thoughts on what you're observing, what's going on, if you have questions, and talk to each other. It's a great way to connect here in the chat. Now, what's very different this time around is you're going to have the ability to vote throughout the presentation. This is actually going to be, we're going to be pausing at key moments to ask you how you think the solutions consultant should respond. So you're actually going to get to change the flow of our presentation as we're going along. A little scary for pre-sales people, I know. And when you're voting, one thing to keep in mind, you're going to see some questions that you go, oh, that's the right answer, and that one's definitely not. Don't feel like you have to pick the answer that you would respond with or you think the proper thing to do is. One of the things you might look at is, hey, I don't think that's how I would answer, but I want to see how that one plays out. Feel free to select that answer too. We're going to be using the majority answers to direct our players on how we go from there. So please participate. We're depending on you to help change the script as we're going through it. With all that being said, I want to introduce our stage and what you're actually going to be observing. So first off, we're dealing with two companies. The first one is DemoCo. It's our software company that's pitching today. That's Peter's company in his role today. They're a hosting platform for mid-range to larger vacation properties. So hotels, bed and breakfast properties, or even home rentals. They focus on corporate properties. So companies may have one or a handful of locations. They're not going out to the Marriotts or the Hiltons of the world. DemoCo is actually the #3 player in their space, meaning they're fairly well known. People know them out there, but they're not the leader in the market. They don't have the biggest market share. Analysts aren't covering them the most. Their average deal size is around $75K a year. So not super small, but obviously not a big enterprise company either. Now, Acme is our prospective company, and that's Tom, Pam, and Veronica's company. It was founded about 20 years ago by a group of friends. Currently, they own 7 properties spread across the US, and they typically buy properties from those sole proprietors, people that are ready to leave the business or are moving out. So they don't have a lot of technology concerns. They're not pulling in giant property systems that they need to deal with. Their CEO has placed an emphasis to modernize all their systems over the next few years. So as a result, Pam has asked Tom to evaluate their reservation software so they can roll it out across their properties. And they plan to make a decision within the next quarter. So those are our companies. Let's meet our players in the room. For today, we're going to assume the salesperson has already done the kickoff of the meeting, and we're actually tuning in right as Peter's about to kick off into his demo. So I might jump in a couple of times as an account executive stand-in, but we're not going to take you through all of the upfront part that we know a great salesperson has already done. As the players themselves, Peter's our solutions consultant. You can see some of the notes here. He wasn't part of the original discovery. He just got notes from the account executive. He's gone out and done some research on his own. He's very well versed in all of DemoCo's product suite. And the AE told him, hey, just do your typical demo, because none of us ever hear that. So that's our solutions consultant. You'll also notice in their virtual backgrounds, all of these pieces are here so you can help keep track of who's who. Veronica is our IT director. She's been brought into this meeting by the business users, but doesn't know anything about DemoCo. And her concerns are all around the security, integration needs, and IT resource demands. And while she sees that as super important, the business often sees her as a blocker. She sees her role in IT as protecting the business, making sure everything is safe. And the business users, Tom and Pam, just want to get stuff done, and IT keeps slowing them down. Our business users, Tom and Pam. Tom is our reservations director. He's only been at Acme for 10 months. He's really been brought in to help push for these changes. He's really trying to drive things through. He sees DemoCo as his preferred vendor. He's been meeting with them already. He's gone through all of these. In his mind, DemoCo is the one to choose. He does believe it's going to have a high ROI, but he hasn't really proven that out yet. And Tom is planning to get this deal done within the next 3 or 4 weeks so that he can get it implemented by September. So as the stand-in AE, that makes me thrilled as well, knowing that I've got this great champion here and we're ready to close the deal. Now, Pam is Tom's boss. She's the VP of customer service. She hasn't been involved with any of the discussions so far with DemoCo. She's always happy to go find budget for things if it's going to increase productivity. She doesn't always see technology as the answer. So for her, if she has $1 to spend, is it worth investing that in DemoCo, or could she go do more training for her customer service reps, or could they invest more in properties? So she's looking at things a little bit differently than maybe Tom is, and certainly differently than Veronica. So those are our players. Those are the roles they're going to be playing throughout, and you'll see how those personalities match as they're going through different questions and play out. One final note I want to make about our role play right before we now launch in is I do want to emphasize Peter is not doing this as himself. while he certainly brings his experience to the table, had a lot of input as we were preparing. We've also worked in some bad habits and some unpopular traits into the script. So anything you see negative that's purely for educational purposes, please don't hold it against Peter. All right, with that, I will stop my share and we will dip into our room and hand things over to my good friend Peter, who's going to walk us through the solution.
Thanks, Kevin, for that wonderful round of introductions. Great to meet you all, Tom, Pam, and Veronica. So based on my conversations earlier with Tom, it sounds like the reservations team really has to track everything manually about the rooms. Adding or updating properties is a really big challenge and a time suck, and you're hoping to automate significantly more of this, more of these workflow changes compared with the typical process. Any other high-level pain points you'd call out before we dive in?
Nothing for me, Peter.
No, not really at the moment.
I think we're good.
Okay, great. Well, in today's demonstration, I'm going to cover the guest experience in terms of booking a room. I'm going to cover creating a new room, which is going to be significantly more automated. And then we'll talk about some of the mechanics with respect to reporting and keeping things on brand. Does that sound good, or anything else you're really hoping to see today? Awesome. Well, with the most popular question of 2020, can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Brilliant. So what we've done is built out a custom environment for your team based on the Shady Brook Bed and Breakfast. It's a location that my girlfriend and I have wanted to travel to for some time. And so the first step that I'm going to take is just to book a room, let's say maybe next weekend in August. And you'll notice here that it auto localizes based on the currency and language of the location of the rental. And I can even auto populate from stored Google contacts. And when I push book, it's actually just going to log that on the back end so that you can report against it. And I think maybe this weekend's already booked. Let me just try something else really quick here.
Oh no, we've had an issue. So we're going to pause there. We've had a demo environment issue. What should Peter do next? You can see the options in the poll here. He could say nothing, try to submit again. He could apologize and move on. He could blame Wi-Fi and try it again. Or he could try troubleshooting it.
Hey, is Mercury in retrograde? I'm not sure what's going on here, but this is definitely something that works in the production environment. These bookings will be automatically captured, and as you see, it's a super streamlined workflow from the end user perspective. Once that room is reserved, it's going to be marked as unavailable.
Peter, sorry, but is that just tracked in your platform? Because we use Preno for our reservation system, and we really don't want to make a switch.
Oh, we can totally integrate with your systems, so you can keep using your current process on the back end.
Okay. To be honest, we've heard that from other few vendors, but we had issues. I would like to know something more about your integration and how this happens with you.
Yeah. Veronica, I've looked at this and I'm confident that we can integrate to it.
Tom, yes, I understand that, but we still need to review it from a technical standpoint, and I would like to see it with my solution architects team, because if we don't clarify that, I don't think that we can move on with the contract.
Well, I talked to somebody who had a system similar to Preno and they had no issues with the integration. So again, I don't think this is going to be an issue.
Yeah, we're going to pause there. We're in the middle of an internal fight. So it's starting to get a little bit uncomfortable. How should Peter, our SC, react to this internal conflict? Should he acknowledge the issue, follow up with Veronica one-on-one, wait for the Acme team to resolve it themselves? Maybe Pam's going to jump in and break the tie here. He could reassure Veronica that it's been done before and connect her with his IT team. Or he could offer to send Veronica the integration documentation. How do you want to see him respond?
Veronica, that's a super insightful point, and I absolutely appreciate the concern. I actually have another customer who I was speaking with just the other day who uses Preno as an integrated layer as well. So I know we can handle the integration. How about I set up a call for you and your architecture team to walk through this with me on the details?
Yeah, that would be great. But I also like to include my integration lead.
Okay, Kevin, if you wouldn't mind just taking that down as a note to make sure that we can follow up. I'm sure we can get something set up in the next few days.
Absolutely.
Great. So just moving on with our guest journey here, let's say I wasn't ready to book, but I did want to sign up to the contact form. Again, I have this handy autocomplete feature that makes this super seamless process. So it's simple to for the guest to get in contact with the property. And I'm just gonna. Yes, Tom?
We have several agents monitoring guest emails. Can we have the results of that form get directed based on the guest profile or request type?
Interesting feedback. So we actually only send to a single email address, but what some of our customers do is build aliases and internal workflow engines to support that. Would that seem to resolve the problem?
It's not ideal. It would probably work short term. Would you commit to putting that on your roadmap?
Ooh, I'll definitely take that feedback to our product team. You're certainly not the first person to mention it. We have
Tom.
our.
Yeah, sorry, Tom, I'm going to jump in here because I feel like, Tom, didn't we invest in our own forms system? And we really want to utilize that and not, have everyone learn a new tool. So could we just have our forms not use this?
It would work for me, but I still think this would be good for the roadmap.
We can integrate with other third-party tools as well, Preno, as well as other tools. I mean, what might make sense is to follow up for a deeper dive integration session and encompass the entire technology stack.
Yeah, that would be super helpful for now, and I'm sure Veronica would like that as well.
Yeah.
On top of that, I know you mentioned that you have some integrations with some of the systems that Veronica was mentioning, Preno for one. Is it possible for us to get some references and some other people that we could talk to?
Possibly. I know that out of respect for our customers' time, like you, potentially, we definitely want to make sure that we're not overburning them with references. But let me get back to you in a follow-up and see if we can set something up. I want to make sure that it's somebody who's similar to Acme Co, so that it'll be an impactful conversation.
Okay, great.
So just to recap here, what we saw was the contact form and the booking experience on the guest end. Where I want to go now is into the back end where we can see building a room, configuring branding, etc. But before I go there, any other questions on the guest experience?
No, but awesome. I want Pam to see the back-end experience. This is what I have been talking about all along, Pam.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, here what I'm doing is just creating a new room. And so I'll title this room 102. We'll make it a double. It's going to be accessible, and the price is going to be $200 because this is really fancy and it's got all of the features. And when I create, with a single click of a button, now I have that room available for booking and all the associated details that you saw on the front end.
So Peter, a lot of our properties have quite a few custom rooms. This seems kind of manual. Does this mean someone from the team has to enter every one of these separately? It seems like a lot of effort. How would we manage that?
Great question, Pam. I can totally understand where going through this workflow every time would become a pain if you have a large number of properties like you mentioned. What we're able to do is actually import the room configurations. I'm just showing you the manual workflow for illustrative purposes here on the demo.
And is that done through an API or through a batch process?
So we actually offer both processes.
All right, let's stop there. So not our problem like we've seen in our other ones, but still another question. What do we do next? Should Peter add more details on that import option? Our choices here. Yeah, he can detail the pros and cons of both approaches. Yes, he should keep going. Maybe ask Veronica if they have a preferred method. Or no, the question was answered, and now he can just verify that Veronica doesn't need more information and move along.
Well, Veronica, just to double click on that last question, while we do offer both methods, does Acme usually choose one or the other? Do you have a preference?
Yeah, we actually prefer to do it through API because it just helps us to track it easier and to automate it.
Got it. We hear that feedback frequently, and we actually have a pretty thorough API documentation that I can send over to you and your team so that you can understand what you'll need to configure. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that would be great. If we have some more questions, we'll request something more, I guess.
Sounds good. So next, I'm actually going to navigate by clicking here on the nav bar over to the branding tab. And Tom shared that this was a big concern for you. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, specifically, we are looking right now at, trying to bring all of our properties to a current look and feel for our customers so that their experience is similar regardless of the property. But our logos and our branding is really kind of on a shared drive. So we've got it in a lot of places, but we're also working with an agency to refine that. So, we want to make sure that it's easy to do.
All right, so we have another question. Should he ask Pam some more questions about the branding, about those corporate standards? So our choice is pretty simple here again. Yes, ask the discovery question, go deeper into it. Or no, but maybe he can point out how easy it is for demo code to accomplish all of those standards. Or the alternative no, yeah, Pam answered it. So keep moving along with the demo. Stop taking time asking questions when they just want to see the product.
Pam, I'm so glad you brought that up. Maintaining brand consistency is super important to being the enterprise platform and serving the clients in the best way possible. Can you tell me a little bit more about the challenges that you're having with making sure that everything's on point today?
Yeah, just being able to, make sure that it's easy and that everyone can have access to, different logos and different branding, and being able to really do it on their own is really important to us right now. And then also, do you work with other marketing agencies that help some of your clients, or is that something you can also provide us with some additional resources?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of the elements that you mentioned are totally configurable through the platform, and we'll make sure to set you up with the right level of customization there. And then in terms of other clients, I'm just going to take a mental note on that in terms of informing who we might set you up with for a reference so that you'll get to answer that question sort of from the horse's mouth.
Great. And I know I have another question for you, Peter. As you're actually editing this and adding all of these details, who owns this editing? In other words, as you know, we're a growing organization and we buy up a lot of smaller bed and breakfasts. And so they don't necessarily have a lot of technology background. So I really want to see what kind of, administrator or kind of person really needs to be able to manage this, and what would their background need to be?
Yeah, great question. So usually what we see, or what I see in talking to clients, is that it's a shared responsibility because, like you mentioned, it can be difficult to train marketers on all these technical activities. But is there somebody that owns this work today? Veronica, perhaps?
Veronica, I believe it's someone on your team, correct?
Yeah, it's the IT team, but also sometimes we pull other people. It's really a mixed bag, and we would like to have maybe a role that has different permissions, but the role that can be also shared by a few team members. Can you do that?
Absolutely. Maybe it would be helpful, Kevin, if we followed up with some of those Visio diagrams, just outlining what the workflow and sequence of responsibilities might be based on what we've seen from our client base.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Pam, I want to make sure I'm getting to your question. Does that address it?
That helps. Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to some of our discussions around ROI and also some of the references that you mentioned and how we can see the proof that happens with your customers.
All right. Well, navigating to the last step in the demo, I want to show you guys a little bit more about the reports tab. So if I click over here, you can see all of the active bookings. And because this is just a demo environment, of course, we don't have any coming up. So the calendar is blank, but I could navigate to other months and just see what reservations are coming up. Tom, this is what we discussed in the last demo. And you mentioned that your team has to go into several different systems to get the same level of information. Is that right?
Yeah, this is such a pain today.
Wow, what a champion, Tom. You could have gone deeper than that. Let's ask the audience. How should Peter proceed? First off, he probably could have asked less of a closed-ended question there to get Tom to talk more, but how should he proceed now? Should he ask Tom to quantify how much time, because that's going to be the proof of ROI? Should he direct it to Pam? Is this the kind of automation she's looking for that would justify buying DemoCo? Or is this a chance to remind Veronica about how it can be integrated into their other systems?
Gosh, I'm sorry to hear that's still the case, Tom. I know how much of a pain it can be. Would you say you have a sense for, on average, how many hours in a week your team is spending pulling these types of reports amongst the systems?
If I had to guess, Peter, I mean, I've only been here 10 months. It's at least 3 or 4 people, 5 to 6 hours a week.
Wow. Well, if I'm doing the back of the napkin math correctly, using DemoCo, we could save your team about 12 hours per week.
Yeah, so Pam, this just made our business case much easier.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the ROI analysis on this, Tom. I know we're, we definitely have some room in the budget, but we want to make sure we're using that money appropriately. And, whether it's on a new system or whether it's just upgrading the rooms and the properties we have, we really have to look at some hard choices.
Tom, one other thing I know you had mentioned previously was making a booking on behalf of somebody else.
That's what I was going to ask. Can we do a booking on behalf of a guest? Because my team answers a lot of emails and calls, or people don't want to book online. They want some help.
Absolutely. So that's where I was going to go next. In the admin console here, directly through the reporting tab, you can actually create a new booking. And so this is what's showing up here. I can auto populate, let's say, for my friend Tom, and I can select the room. Note that he hasn't yet paid the deposit, and click book. Once I've entered that information, that reservation, that process of booking on Tom's behalf is complete.
So do we have permissions on that? I don't know that we necessarily want everyone to be able to create reservations. How does the permissioning work for that?
Great question. So we can create different roles and permissions. We actually have a robust role-based access control framework on the back end, so that you can set up incremental permissions where people could, for example, view bookings but not edit, or add new ones or make changes, etc. This is all configurable and will be implemented based on your requirements in the implementation phase.
And Peter, how are these users managed?
We typically build a user file for import, or we offer an SSO option where you can configure Skim to auto-populate these different permissions.
Okay, because we also use SSO, we actually use OneLogin. Can you support OneLogin?
All right, big question. We're going to throw that one to the audience. So Veronica just asked, do you support this specific SSO software? So how should Peter respond to that? Do you want him to say, hey, I'm not sure about that specific one. Let me go verify with the technical team. Always a fine answer. He could give the pat answer of, hey, as long as it's SAML 2.0 compliant, we can support it. Meaning, again, he still doesn't really know OneLogin, so he's kind of passing the question along. Or he could pop into yeah, definitely. Here, let me show you that configuration. Or he could say yes and mention some other customers that are also using OneLogin. So how would you like to see Peter respond here?
Veronica, if I recall correctly, OneLogin is actually a SAML 2.0 compliant platform. And as long as it is, we can totally support it. I'm not super familiar with OneLogin, but does that sound right based on your understanding?
Yes, yeah, that sounds right.
Excellent.
Okay. Great, thank you.
So in terms of wrapping this up, what I did want to, I've shown you what I wanted to see, what I think would be valuable for Acme Code today, in terms of the reporting and management, consolidating those systems, keeping brand consistency, and then of course the ease of use on the guest experience. Was there anything else that stands out as missing, or that you wanted to dig deeper into?
I think this was good, Peter. Thank you for the presentation. It's been super helpful, but before we sign any contracts and I find some budget for this particular project, we're going to need to run a proof of concept. So what does that look like with your company?
Uh-oh, there's a big question. So Pam's just asked, what do we get for a proof of concept? So how should we have Peter respond to that? He could say, yeah, we're glad to set that up. Our company doesn't offer proofs of concept. I've actually worked for companies where we dreaded this question because we absolutely did not want to run a proof of concept. Maybe he asked her for a little more details, like, hey, what do you need to see out of that? Or maybe it's a redirect, like, hey, we don't really offer proof of concept, but maybe we could look at a longer pilot. So there are alternatives.
Well, Pam, we could definitely explore a POC. I just want to make sure that you get the most out of that experience. So are you looking to test drive some of the interfaces of DemoCo, or just get some more justification around the value we're providing?
Yeah, I guess it's both really. I just really want to make sure that this is going to work with our systems. As you heard from Veronica, what we're using today, and also want to make sure that this is something that our users could get around. So yeah, it's kind of both. Well,
here's an idea. What if we built out a smaller environment, maybe one property, and we call it a proof of value? That would allow us to do some light integration work with Veronica, but also helping you see some of the front end workflows and potential ROI of our system.
So I like that approach. I'm confident that my team will pick up the tool quickly. We're just trying to test the value of the system and make sure it'll work for us.
Okay, it sounds like we need to discuss that more. I know how things work here, and we need to be super thoughtful in our approach. Again, we've got a limited budget, and we want to make sure that this is going to work for us as an organization.
All right, we will stop there. So thank you all. Obviously, there would be more wrap up. There'd be an official into the meeting, but we're going to stop there. So first off, thank you again to all of our players. I do have one last poll related to this deal. All of you SCs that are sitting out there in the audience, all of you pre-sales professionals, what's your opinion on this deal? Are they going to close it this quarter? Remember, we came into this, the AE and Tom believed this was going to close within 3 to 4 weeks. Are you convinced? Like, are they sold? Are they going to be committing to this deal this quarter? They're ready to go. Maybe it's kind of that mid-level, like, yeah, there's definitely a lot of potential here, but this isn't a quarter deal. Like, don't put this in the forecast. Or are you totally negative on it? Like, this deal is dead. Like, why are we even talking to this company? Also want to throw into chat, what did you hear that Peter and or the AE owe as outcomes coming out of this meeting? There were several things talked about throughout of, oh yeah, we'll follow up with that. Oh yeah, we'll make a note to bring that to you. Put some things in the chat. Did you catch everything? Because it's tough as the person driving a meeting or driving that demo, you're focused on your script, you're focused on the things you're trying to show, and there's all these things that are happening. How do you capture that information? Is that something that you should be jotting down along the way? Is that something your AE should be jotting down? Who's responsible for that? Throw some ideas in the chat. What do you think about that? So in our last few minutes, want to see, from each of the panelists, maybe we'll start with you, Peter, and kind of go up the scale there. Just a few tips you might offer as someone in your persona in this type of meeting.
Yeah, and so I guess this is mostly just like advice for SCs, but the two key things that I always keep in mind is always repeat and clarify questions. Chances are you'll steer the conversation back to more familiar territory. And then beyond that, just be human and keep things light. You can really stand out by being somebody that people want to talk to.
And Veronica, as that IT person, what would you offer maybe to people who are having to deal with someone like you?
Someone that's a blocker, I guess. So I think it's important to know, and I saw it in the comments as well. It's important to know what's my impact on the decision. How much power do I have over this? Because if I am a reasonable blocker, you can still win me, but there are some blockers that can be quite annoying. They can just keep asking questions and then trying to throw you off just for the sake of throwing you off. So yeah, if you know what my impact is, just make sure that that you pay attention to my questions and always probe. So whenever a blocker has a question, and if they're reasonable, probe more, try to really understand, to show them that you want to understand what their issue is, what their challenge is, and then be welcoming to whatever questions they have. Even if they give you this negative vibe, just don't exclude them from the conversation. Try to engage them.
Yeah, I think that's a great comment, because you certainly have some blockers, especially in your role as IT, that they really are just negative. Like they don't want to see anything get done. Like those people do exist. But you also have people, which is what we try to personify you as, that yes, while the business sees you as a blocker, you see yourself as helping the business, because you're there to make sure they don't do something that's going to hurt them in the long run. So you're coming at it from a very positive aspect. It may be interrupting the flow of this meeting, or it may be interrupting the pieces. So I think you make a great point of trying to understand those blockers, and do they really matter? Or is this someone, as we kind of saw Peter doing, definitely acknowledged your issues, talked about it, and said, that's great, let's put that to the side and come back at a different time to talk about that. So it's not blowing you off, it's not ignoring your questions and the things you're bringing up, your concerns, but it's more like, this is not the right time, let's get a better format that you're going to like better. So thank you. Tom, want to jump in and tell us, as the champion and the reservation director and the change agent, what are the tips for dealing with someone like you?
I have happy ears, so take anything I say with a grain of salt. Also validate what my power is in this decision. Chances are it's nothing. So since I'm already on board, take the time to build the relationship with Pam and Veronica. It's actually okay to ignore me, so it shows like you're not paying too many favorites, or do a dry run with me to make sure that some points are more scripted out that I can help you with. That would be my advice. And again, if there are questions that are going to come up, sometimes it's better if the person at the company answers the questions, as let somebody from Acme actually answer a question.
Yeah, love that point. Somebody else was talking about that in the chat of, prep with your champion, like use them, like show them that love, give them the chance to show off a little bit too. But to your point, like really bringing them in ahead of time of, hey, Tom, this is really where I want you to jump in. And, when I was working as an SC, like that was always one of the best things of, hey, Tom, I'm going to show this feature, and I would really like it if you would pile onto this, because it means so much more coming from you than if I say it or my salesperson next to me says it. Like if you bring it up, like it's going to look great for you too. Like it's not just self-serving. So fantastic tips. And Pam, how about you? So that executive buyer, the person who signs the check but may not be totally invested yet, what are the tips for that person?
Yeah, great question. I actually was glomming onto what Tom said. Honestly, he could have given you more info and insights on me that probably could have prompted a different type of intro even, and kind of reiterating the other challenges, because you haven't spoken to me, you haven't spoken to Veronica yet. We're both different blockers in different ways, and I hold the budget. So I think the lesson there is, if and you have a smaller group and you have an executive who is the person who is the economic buyer jumping in on your last presentation, it's okay to say, hey, both, hey, Pam, or hey, Veronica, we didn't get a chance to talk before this. Tom's given me these things that I know are important to you, clarifying them, but then also giving me the chance to say, hey, because we haven't met yet, can you just give me the top 3 things that are important to you? And then that way you can relate it back to me as well. And that way I feel kind of heard, less so that I'm going through the demo trying to figure this out. And then, you also have those things that you can try to pivot towards. Hopefully they're all similar to what Tom's are, but yeah, then that way you learn more about me. And I think that gives you a lot more credibility as well. And I think the same for the IT person. So that would be my advice. And definitely the way we handled it and taking that off into another meeting with Veronica, I think is super important. And you may need to have to do that with me too. When we did the ROI, the ROI discussion, or even the POC discussion, that could have also been, hey, we're running low on time, but we'd love to hear more about this. Let's take this offline and give you 30 minutes to discuss it. So I think that could also have been a good way to approach it. But yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And Michael threw it in the chat too. Like, find ways to build that rapport. especially when you have new people in the room. Obviously, in your role, you're the executive buyer. You definitely need to build rapport with that person. But
Absolutely.
yeah, finding those ways, talking with Tom beforehand of like, hey, Tom, help us understand who are the people in the room, what's going on. And this may be in a case that the AE may have done all of that, but clearly he didn't share it all with Peter. Or maybe he didn't do it either. Maybe I did a bad job. But either way, I like your point, Pam, of you still need to verify it, because Tom may think he's got a finger on everything and he's completely wrong. This is the danger in trusting a champion. They may not be correct either. So you need to trust but verify every step of the way. Great. And some of the pieces, we skipped over a little bit here and there in our setup and along the way. There were definitely places that Peter probably could have dug further into Pam's questions, or tried to to your point, build up more of that rapport either ahead of time or kind of along the way. We were obviously condensing things for time, but at the same time, as all of us were preparing for this session, we kind of went through and we've all had meetings go exactly like this, where even we looked back and go, yeah, I went through 3 things. I should have stopped at 2 and gone deeper. So again, all of the bad habits we presented here were scripted. Please don't put this in Peter's permanent file when you're giving feedback on him later. I want to say a huge shout out again to all the panelists. They've done a ton of work preparing their roles, getting all of these pieces down. So thank you all very, very much. As we start to wrap up here, I want to throw out one last poll and let this one run for a little bit. How did we do today? Give us a little bit of feedback on the webinar. Did you find it useful? And we also want to understand a little bit about how often are you participating in PreSales Collective webinars? So give us a little feedback there. And while that's running, I want to take a minute to thank our sponsor for today, Reprise. We can't put out content like this without our fabulous partners in the pre-sales technology world, and Reprise is one of the great ones. So big thank you to them. As we saw today, demonstrating complex software can be really hard, especially to do it in a meaningful way. The product teams are creating those great workflows. You saw all of the easy stuff Peter was going through, but in a demo, you don't really want to click through 5 steps. Maybe something breaks along the way, because you're just trying to show the value to the customers and the prospects. So Reprise was really built to help teams do that. They help them to help your team create demo environments to meet those new demands of the product-led growth world. The buying environment is changing. Sales and marketing, they need to get faster conversions. You in pre-sales, you're looking to help customers get to that aha moment even easier. And that's what Reprise is built to do. So check them out at reprise.com. You can see their demo creation platform for yourself. So thank you to Reprise. And my last note, be sure to check our next events. So tomorrow we actually have the next edition of the PreSales Collective Book Club. They're going to be discussing how the future works. Don't worry, if you haven't read the book, you can still join in and talk. Or you can also sign up for the rest of the series for the rest of this year. Also coming up on July 26th, we're going to have a great discussion with a panel around elevating pre-sales to take on more of the end-to-end product experience. So a little bit different thought, a great chance for you to join, hear their opinions, ask your own questions as well. And as always, you can see all of our list of events at the URL you see listed. You can also find detailed information at presalescollective.com. So please join us. Love to see you out there in the community. Come see us on Slack. We have a vibrant community there, and become a member if you aren't already. So thank you again, Tom, Veronica, Pam, Peter, very much appreciate your time. And thank you all for joining us today.